Thank you for joining me on this episode of Unraveling Success. I am honored today to be joined by Danielle Yegge. She is one of the owners of Style and Structure, and they are out of Stillwater, Minnesota. Danielle is married to her hubby, Matt, and has two beautiful children, Cooper and Oakley. And in her previous life, Danielle was a realtor, now turned builder. So super excited to hear about your journey there. In her spare time, Danielle enjoys boating, same here, reading, same here, traveling, same here, watching kids play lacrosse, not same here. But anyway, super fun sport. I love lacrosse and that community. I've only heard amazing things about. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for
And
having
I'm excited to chat. So let's just jump in and let's get started by what is your personal definition of success?
Yeah, I think that's really changed over the years. I think when I first got into the business world, doing sales, doing real estate, when people would ask me that question, it was financially driven. It's like, okay, if I make, $1 million, I'll be successful. And then that, number changed, and that was my sole focus. And I was doing great. I was hitting those, milestones to get to those goals. Um, but other areas of my life were falling apart. So today, how I define success is having balance between four pillars. And that is, finances, which also includes your business, faith, family, and fitness. And I've just found that, like, if one of those four pillars is off, everything else feels really unstable. And so I've really just focused my life on trying to make sure those things are balanced and I'm happy. And the other thing is like, how I previously looked at success was your end goal. It's like, okay, if I reach that, I won. And instead, it's like, you should always have an end goal and keep reaching towards that. Success is kind of laying out those milestones and, like, are you hitting those, and celebrating the wins along the way.
Mm-hmm. Um, so you hit on two things, and I love that definition. The whole idea of the four pillars is resonates with me a lot. I know we talked about that a little bit ago, but I something that you touched on that I want to just kind of highlight before we lean into the four pillars is um, the success. Like, it's good to start with the end in mind, or what you hope the end in mind will be. But I really have found that it's amazing to me because when you, and I don't know if this is the same with you, but when I've met certain benchmarks along the way, um, I've really realized how anticlimactic they are, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, actually the joy is completely in the journey, and really just seeing like what's the maximum potential that you can realize, not only of yourself, but then of your business, which then also means your employees, like the people you're surrounding yourself with.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, my husband and I always talk about, it's like, it's this perfection mentality of, like, hitting your end goal, or like when people say, "Oh, I'm working because this is how I want my retirement to look." And it's like, okay, retirement's a long way away. What about everything in between? And it's like, are
Yeah.
we going to enjoy ourselves or work to what we hope our life eventually will be? And
Mm-hmm.
I had to really switch that mindset, because that's how I was living my life, and nothing was good enough, and I couldn't celebrate the wins even though I was tracking towards my goal. And I'm like, laying out milestones, realistic milestones, was helpful, because I'm always going to have a goal. I hope I never reach my goal, and if I do, I'm going to have a new one. So yeah, it's the celebrating those milestones. And really, I was forced by a mentor of mine to lay it out, and, like, what's an actual realistic goal. I'm not a realistic person. I'm always pushing myself to do more and more. And my whole team's always looking at me. They're like, "Really, we're going to hit that many sales this year?" I'm like, yes we are.
Yeah.
But so I think it's fun to push yourself even in those milestones. But yeah, celebrating the wins is the big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one of the lessons I've really learned this, I would say, even in the past 5 years, because we're 5 years ago, we passed where my end goal was,
Yeah, that's awesome.
which sounds really cool, except for it's not, because
Right.
I was like, I actually don't know what to do. It was actually, it was the weirdest thing because you want to celebrate it, but it was actually maybe more sad than anything else because I hadn't actually planned. I
Yeah.
made a plan, but I didn't remake a plan. And
Yeah.
so now my husband and I have like this is and we are if you've ever read the book Traction, we are like classic integrator.
I
Yeah,
love
do you love
Yes.
same. So we are the most classic visionary integrator. I'm the
Yeah.
visionary, he's the integrator. I scare the crap out of him. He's like trying to be like, "Whoa, slow down," and I can't.
Yeah.
Um so but he'll ask me like, "Well, what's the end game? Like how much is enough?" And I'm like, this has nothing to do with acquiring more or how much is enough. It has everything to do with being in a position to see like where can this go? Like what can this do? Like, but not from a selfish or greedy standpoint, but it's like wanting to realize the full potential.
Yeah.
And so I now, to be honest, I don't even have, I mean, we have benchmarks for the year and things we want to reach, but I mean, I feel it's just a very interesting evolution. I
Yeah.
think the more that you almost let it go a little bit and you think way big, I
Hmm.
haven't thought big enough, is what I've realized. Is I
Absolutely.
guess I could.
And I think people hold themselves back all the time with that mindset, and people don't even
Mm-hmm.
realize it. They look at something
Yeah.
as so impossible or hard to reach, or, oh, I couldn't do that. Someone else can handle, a company like that, or the amount of leads that you're taking on, whatever your goal is, whatever your company is. And it's like, why not you?
Yeah.
And that's always been my, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like mindset is like, maybe I've been naive enough to think, yeah, I can do it, and really
Yeah.
push towards these impossible, or what they call BHAG goals. And you get there, like you got to your end goal and you realize, okay, that was doable. And again, it's then at that moment a time to reflect, okay, what's the next like impossible feeling goal? And maybe you don't reach it, but at least you're pushing yourself. And I think
Mm-hmm.
people need to have, higher expectations on themselves, and constantly push and realize like you're capable of more than you think you are.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
so true. So you said, "Why not you?" And
Mhm.
I love that's such a beautiful tagline. Where do you feel like that mentality came from for you?
Yeah, I think, growing up, I had such supportive parents, and we had, it was three girls. I'm the middle of three. And, my parents were both very business savvy entrepreneurs and medical sales, all this kind of stuff. So they really ingrained that mindset in me of like, you can do anything. And, I had this, spicy little personality where I feel like, whether you're in school and teach, people are always trying to, you know, downplay that and put you in a box.
Yeah.
And, I constantly remember, specifically my dad always saying, he's like, no, we got to hone that energy and that mindset to good, because it could be bad, if you don't
Mhm.
use it right. And it's funny, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's like mini version of me. And that's the mindset I'm trying to think of with parenting her, is like, if she gets in trouble for socializing too much or whatever at school, instead of punishing her, saying like, you can't do that, you need to follow the rules, it's how do we direct it better and use it for good?
Mhm.
Of course, while listening to some of the rules at school. But yeah, it's just, I love that I had that support, and then could really,
Yeah.
be myself when I got to, business. So,
Yeah. I can relate to that. My parents were actually career-wise very different, like probation and parole and a teacher, so way different.
okay.
But I definitely never had my wings clipped. Like they always basically were just like, you can do, like you don't have the sky is the limit. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's that can really set you up for like it's a big big deal when it comes to mindset for sure.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
let's circle back because I know I talked about the 4 pillars. So family, finances, fitness, and faith, which it's just that was one of my favorite things when I was reading through what you had written before we started talking,
Mhm.
and that is something I'm really passionate about as well. Just the harmony between
Mhm.
all of them, and that they're all prioritized and show up on your calendar. So one of the things I do is every Sunday I plan my week. Like the whole week is laid out. I get everything coordinated so I can just like walk into my days and I don't
Mhm.
have things blowing up in my face, and I focus on taking control of the day rather than the day taking control of me.
Mhm.
But on Sundays, I also reflect on the week backwards to make sure that what I say my priorities are with my mouth are how my priorities are showing up on my calendar, because that's actually how I'm spending my time.
Absolutely.
And it's so important. And you know, I know we talked about this, but on this podcast, like one of my litmus tests is, I want to talk to people that have found success, but that doesn't just mean monetarily. It means all areas of your life, because it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank if your health or your marriage or your relationships or you don't have any kind of spiritual foundation. It doesn't matter. Like if one of those other things isn't in order, the money means nothing. So
Absolutely.
tell me, what are some things that you tell me a little, I guess twofold. What's your philosophy on those pieces, and what do you do on a day-to-day basis to um, integrate those priorities in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can just tell when I am putting more energy into one over the other. When I'm super busy at work and my husband makes a comment like, gosh, I feel like we're ships in the night. I haven't seen you forever. It's just like bulb goes up. We're like, oh gosh, I've got to put more energy there. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
easy to get drawn in because frankly, all 4 pillars are positive things. And so when you're doing something positive, it's hard to self-reflect and feel like, gosh, I'm not putting energy in another area, because who's going to say like you working hard is a bad thing? Like we've been told our whole lives, like working hard, you get rewarded for that. So, but
Mm-hmm.
really it is that balance. So for me, it's always those check-ins on those few areas and feeling like, do I feel, connected? Am I feeling good? I mean, same goes for work. Sometimes I get a little exhausted and all of a sudden, my to-do list gets crazy. I'm like, okay, I got to start putting a little bit more energy there. So it's just finding that balance. But I think, I do exactly what you said. It's for me, what works is the scheduling. I have to put it,
Mm-hmm.
like, I will not miss a business appointment, but then I would miss or reschedule date night with my husband because I was tired or whatever. And it was just verbally talked about, oh, let's try to do like a Tuesday night date night. Now, whether it's date night or taking the kids to a movie, like it's in my calendar. It's an appointment that will not be
Yeah.
missed just as much as I won't miss a client Zoom meeting. So I think it's
Mhm.
just prioritizing those things and not trying to put one over the other. And it's hard. It's a hard balance fitting everything in, but
Yeah.
you just have to kind of find little things that work for you. And for me, that calendar is like my go-to.
Me too. Yeah, it's a big deal. In fact, I'm a bit of a geek about it because I have like our family calendar that's all color coordinated, and that's a whole thing. And then I
Mhm.
have my business one, and then I actually on Sundays I actually write it out and merge them. And like I also look to see like what things did I say yes to that maybe I shouldn't have, or that I can have maybe someone on my team jump in and I don't really need to be there.
Exactly.
Um, because I tend, I need to work on using the word no more than I do. So work
Mhm.
in progress, but
I don't know the meaning of it either.
it's, yeah, I'm trying. At least now I can just move appointments to other people and be like, will you run this? Will you take this one for me? And
And I think that's
it
key.
works.
I mean, that's something that people have to learn through their business is delegating and trusting
Yeah.
your team. And I'm like, that's been a really challenging thing for me, specifically on the sales side. There's
Yeah.
other areas that I'm not that in love with doing, like estimating. I don't love putting together a quote for my clients that I'm building a home for. So we have got an estimator in house. I am happy to hand off that role. But
Yeah.
sales, that's my background, that's my passion. And right now our company is talking through so many leads. So I've got a team under me there, and I'm like, it's very challenging for me to hand it off because I just want to step in and, instead of
Yes.
train, is just do it myself. And then like I've had to
Yeah.
realize, no, this is a training opportunity and let it go.
I can very much relate to that because I have been through that, and I think it's the always,
Mhm.
when you have that in your blood, like, it's hard to let go. But I think, and it's hard to, and I could, we've probably both learned this by this time that most people learn the best lessons learned are from mistakes that they've done.
Mhm.
So getting to the point where not only do you delegate, but you're willing to allow the learning curve where some mistakes will be made, and then you just watch it and
Yeah.
help them fix it, but you don't rush in and take over,
Yeah. That's
That's
so hard.
hard.
And, frankly, we've had deals lost because of certain salespeople I was training in. They didn't know the answer, or didn't say the right thing, and I had to go and correct. And it was just, that's a tough example. But then on the flip side, I had a really great sales girl like over a year ago, loved her. She ended up leaving because she's like, I basically micromanaged her too much. I was too involved and she never felt that level of trust. So as a business owner, it's just that balance of like,
Yeah.
when you do find someone good, it's like learn to see that in them and learn to let
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something I'm learning and doing every day, trying to get better.
Yep. I know. It is a constant growth path, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, so you first started as a realtor,
Yeah.
and then that segued into owning a construction or a building company.
Yeah.
And those are different worlds. And I definitely, there's transferable skills there.
Right.
But you also, the industries and how they work and just the whole everything between them is also very different.
Right.
So talk to me about your journey of how one led into the other.
Mhm. Yeah. So when I lived in Colorado with my husband for like 9 years, we were flipping houses and doing fun stuff, but we had an agent out there who was really good. So I never felt the need to get my license because she was helpful in making our flips really successful. And then when I moved to Minnesota, it just, we really couldn't find the right person to partner with that understood that investment side. There's a lot out there, just the people I was getting connected with weren't the right fit. So I decided to get my real estate license. And quickly after that, I ended up just getting connected with a builder and decided to try that. So we stopped flipping houses. I sat in a model home and really focused on sales. And I did really well. I was with that builder for 8 years. I was very successful in my business practice. And I had a builder. So basically, I would sell the homes. And then my now business partner, Joe, he was my job site supervisor, making sure the builds got to the finish line. And what we ended up doing is breaking off and starting Style and Structure because we really wanted to do just some unique, different, and custom things. The building industry is pretty interesting. There's a lot of things that have always been, and that was always the comment is like, I would want to do some fun, unique things. Like, oh no, 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 this is how we do things. This is how it's always been. And I'm like, I hate that statement. I'm like, well, then we got to try something new. Like that makes me excited to explore something new, even if it doesn't work. So when we started our company, that was going to be like our main mindset. Like, let's break the mold a little bit. Let's do things differently. And
Mhm.
yeah, just be authentic to ourselves and like be excited. We're very passionate about custom homes and really having, first of all, a fun time through the build process, which can traditionally be a very stressful thing for a lot of homeowners. So we want to have fun through that, but then also create some pretty amazing designs. So we've gotten to do that. But I would say the biggest difference is, at my previous company, I got to focus strictly on my job role as a salesperson. I only depended on myself for my success. And I really got used to that. I got used to be like, hey, if I'm slow, it's my fault. If I'm busy, it's also, because of my efforts. And now as a business owner, the success of my company, I'm focusing on every person, every department. And that's hard because I'm like, again, it's
Mm-hmm.
that mentality of just wanting to like do it all yourself. And we've got a team of 12 people now. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I'm in departments like overseeing, whether it's estimating or architectural plans or selections. So there's a lot more hats that I have to wear. But I also love it too. It's a whole different challenge, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest learning curve?
I would say really kind of going back to understanding how to be a leader of a lot of different personality types. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's super valuable to have a lot of different personalities to challenge
Mm-hmm.
the way you think and stuff. So I've intentionally surrounded myself with a lot of people who are different than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Staff, we took a year ago, we took a personality test, and it was like nobody had the same results. And I'm like, which I loved. I'm like, we're all so
Yeah.
different. But with that, then it's understanding, okay, how do these two different personality types communicate better and stuff? And that's been a big challenge, and frustrations on some teams. And ultimately, I think what it boils down to is communication, is like learning how to communicate, learning people's intentions. Someone might be really a blunt personality and the other person a lot more shy, and like that's a hard, personality trait for people not to take offense or, um,
Yeah.
assume wrong intentions. And so that's been a big learning curve of learning how to communicate with a lot of different personality types.
Yes. That's been my biggest learning curve as well. And we also did it was like it's not so much personality test, but it's more like it measures your how, like how you do things, your MO basically.
Okay.
A few years ago too, and that was so helpful for us after we had that done because it explained how everybody works. And I feel like it took like the personal feeling of some of the interactions out of things didn't feel personal because you realize, oh, that's just how that person works. It wasn't actually about me.
Right.
Have you after that what's been your experience after you guys did your testing?
It's been a lot better. I just think that people are not so quick to assume,
Hmm.
that was, a personal attack, kind of going back to that traction mindset that we've implemented in our company. It's like we're attacking issues, not people. And I think,
Hmm.
certain personality types, when you're talking through an issue, they might get really offended because they take so much pride in their work and their role. And if something's not right, now that's an attack on them. And it's like, no, we're going to continue to attack issues. We're all going to
Hmm.
continue to learn and improve because we're never done learning. And yeah, that's just something that
Yeah.
me, as a leader in our company, has to keep repeating and reminding people, that that's our goal, is to always be growing. So,
Yeah. Totally.
mhm.
Yeah. I I agree. So tell us a little bit. You guys have a home and the Artisan Home Tour.
Yeah,
It's coming up.
yeah,
So tell us a little bit about that home, where it is, when it's going, in case anybody wants to stop by.
yeah,
And do you want to share a little bit with us about how that project came to be?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's going to be in Hudson, Wisconsin. It's number 19 on the Artisan Home Tour. And for those who don't know what the Artisan is, very similar to the popular parade of homes in Minnesota and Wisconsin. The artisan is just a little bit more elevated experience. There's less homes. There are, it has a certain price point threshold. And whether it's the parade of homes or artisan, my favorite thing is to go look at these really expensive homes, even to get ideas that, for my own home. I might not do it in the, multi-million dollar way that I'm looking at, but it can certainly inspire ideas for other projects. So I really love the artisan. And this home came about, we had a client coming through our parade of homes. They saw a house, really loved it. And we've been working with these clients for over 3 years because they had to find a lot. They
Yeah.
had to find a 140-acre lot because they wanted their own like hunting land, essentially. And
Okay.
designing the home and all of this stuff. So now that we're coming up on the end of the project, it feels like crazy because it's been such a big part of my life for so many years. So it's fun to see it all come together. We're excited to show it off. But kind of talking about, goals, early on in my real estate career, as far as new construction, my goal was to be a dream home and in the artisan home tour. And that was like my big
Nice.
goal. So yeah, it
It
was
is.
really
Congratulations.
yeah. So last spring, our one of our model homes was the dream home in the parade of homes, and then this will be our first artisan tour. And yeah, we're super excited.
That's amazing. I love that. Congratulations. It's that, especially for such a long term project, to
Oh
see
yeah,
it come to fruition. Like that has to be very rewarding.
yeah, yeah. It's a gorgeous one. And again, the thing that I love about this is our company really poured our hearts into this. We collaborate with the homeowners. We bring design suggestions. We learn how they live so that they can.
Mhm.
It's a unique space to them. Everybody lives different. So I'm like, if someone
So
wants,
true.
yeah, some people want a sport court, some people don't. These guys, like I mentioned, they're hunter. We created a 2-story trophy room for all of his
That's so cool.
hunting. And yeah, so it's very unique for these homeowners.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember our last house that we had, one of my biggest pet peeves was the back entry area because it was like it just accumulated so much stuff because of how it was built. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that getting the idea of how people live and what their needs are individually is just so huge because when you've lived in a house that doesn't configure to your own individual family needs,
Right.
you realize how important that is. And I would also say probably a lot of people don't realize what their unique family needs even are. It probably takes a little bit of time for you to help kind of, I'm sure it's probably something you've learned over time a bit, huh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, even my husband and I's first home, prior to that, we had just been renting houses. We get into this home and I realized like we didn't have a mudroom in the house. Not till I moved in did I realize I'm like, we walked right into the living room onto carpet from the garage. I'm like, oh, this is apparently the people who built the home for them, the mudroom wasn't important. For us, with dog, kids, everything, like this is a little important.
Yep.
So
It's
every
kind of
home
a big deal.
you learn what you like, what you don't like. And that's the fun part of finally getting to build a custom home is like taking everything you learn. You get to stop compromising on like the existing market. You might find a home you love, but you always are compromising at least a little bit on how you might do
Yeah,
things. And that's the fun
for
part about
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that would be fun.
it. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've really noticed about style and structure, well, you and I were in just a little pop-up mastermind together is how I first met you. And then I followed you on social because everybody was like, oh my gosh, you guys should follow them on social. You guys do such a beautiful job.
Thank you.
And I love the fact that you can really see your personality of style and structure pull forward and is well reflected on social. And so, talk to me a little bit about how you guys came to the point where you are now, where you're so clear, like your personality and your brand is so clear. You do a good job of connecting with the audience, but you do it in a way that's authentic to you and your company, not just mimicking what everybody else is doing on social. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a big question.
Yeah. And I think that was hard because when we first started, these were things I wanted to do. I'm like, you think of, okay, how do you want people to visualize your company? And you start listing out, like, hey, here are the things that are important to me as an owner and how I want people to see us. And of course, as a builder, I start listing out things like, quality of homes is really important. We are obsessed with quality and best practices, and that I don't think a lot of people really understand in the remodeling and new construction world what that means. Because you might get
Mm-hmm.
two different bids from contractors, and people say to us like, "Oh gosh, your bid was much higher than theirs,"
Right.
and it's never apples to apples because there's no one way to bid a project, but so it's our job. Education was huge for us on social media, making sure
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of builders will say, "Oh, we have good quality homes." Okay, that's great. We don't want to just say what every other builder said. How do we communicate that? And so my business
Mm-hmm.
partner has a lot of job site education and the whys behind there. The other piece of it is the process. I'm super obsessed with systems and processes and just high level of communication. So we have my team would say an overly detailed process and step-by-step things so homeowners really feel like in the loop. Because I think that's one of the biggest frustrations with building or remodeling. They get such a bad rap because homeowners are like, I have no idea what's going on, or why did my pricing
Mm-hmm.
change constantly? And it's really hard for them to understand the process there. And so I'm like, okay, how do I communicate that we do a high level of communication, that the process is enjoyable? Again, these are things other builders are all saying. And that's, the piece of it was through social media is like getting to know us, getting to know the why, that it will be fun, that we are fun. So it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out all these ways that I would describe my company and communicate it in a different way than other builders do. And that's really how our
Yeah.
social media came about. It's like my goal, in this online era, everybody does their research before they ever buy anything. Like you do
Mm-hmm.
online shopping for clothing, for the grill you're going to buy from Home Depot or whatever. It's like that's the same
Yeah.
with a builder. They do their research. So by the time I have my first Zoom meeting with them, they know my previous projects. They've scoped out my website. They know my team. So if they're going to do that much research, I want them to know us. I want them to feel so. And that's, a piece that we hear all the time with homeowners coming to meet with me, like whether they've heard our podcast or something, they're like, I feel like I know you already. And this is our first meeting. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
good. Then that's what our marketing is
Yes.
successful in what our intention was for them. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, that's how you definitely how you know you've done your job, like from a marketing standpoint and social media, is if people feel like they already know you, which
Yeah.
is amazing.
Well, and the other piece of it was we got a lot of negative feedback early on. I have a lot of
Okay.
friends in the industry that were like, gosh, you guys, you look like you're just doing reels all day. It looks very unprofessional. Like, do you even build homes? Like, we would get comments like that all the time. And I'm like, yeah, we do. We work hard and, but I'm okay with the negative feedback because it ultimately means I'm doing something right because it's different.
Yeah. You're
And so
disrupting and breaking the mold.
yeah, so I'm like, I didn't take it as a negative thing. I'm like, that's okay that they want to conduct business in a different way. This is
Yeah.
an area I don't invest in, much print marketing or billboards, things like that. This
Same.
is what we invest in, and it's been working for us. So
Yeah. Well, and it's at least it looks like it's fun too, which aligns with, what you're wanting it to be is not some stuffy, antiquated, dark process. It's more fun and communicative and, you know, at the least amount of stress that can be when you're building a house.
yeah, well, and what's funny too is like it's fun, but we work hard and play hard here,
Yeah.
and so through our social, we have gotten a flood of people applying to work here. And
I
so,
love
yeah, so when we hire someone, it's really funny because, we've had some people leave and say, like, this is intense. You guys, like, this is way more work than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be reels all day long, or like, photos. I'm like, oh no, like, you get to see as the end user on social media, the fun. We do have fun, but I'm not easy to work for. It's super intense here. Like I said, I'm into systems and processes, and our
yeah.
culture is really intense with that as well.
Yes, you have to keep up. We are like that too, like high pace.
Yeah,
Like we have a really lighthearted, fun team. Everybody works really hard, and we do laugh a ton. In fact, our VAs we do like an open office during the day, and our VAs are often singing in there in open office. Like it's just fun, but
yeah,
it's also like not slacker central at all. It'll.
yeah.
So you mentioned just a moment ago about your podcast. So tell me about how that came to fruition. I know you said you're on your second season and just what it's about. And yeah.
Yeah. So the name of the podcast is called If Walls Could Talk. And my business partner, Joe Brown, and I are the hosts of the show. And sometimes it's just the two of us, but more often than not, we'll bring in a guest. And I
Hmm.
think, again, it was just another way for us to get that educational piece, because we would have individual conversations with homeowners on, like, why we do certain framing that is, different than maybe just per code. People don't realize, like, per code is like the bare minimum. Like, the worst house you could build is at code. There's so many
Hmm.
levels above that of best practices. And so
Hmm.
we wanted it to be an educational tool to direct our homeowners to and explain, like, this is why we don't partner with the cheapest trade out there. Like, we have we have done the work to go through the good, bad, and the ugly when it comes to trade partners or products. And that's why you're hiring a builder and not doing, these DIY projects that often turn into a lot of regret and mistakes. It's like the builders have made the mistakes over the years, or worked with the wrong people, and they fine tune that. And so we've got such a great trade base, a great understanding of why we do things. And a podcast just makes it so, I mean, we do blogs, we do all this stuff to try to get that information out.
Hmm.
Podcast, I think, has been the most fun to really talk through and just get real with some of our trades. We talk about, like,
Yeah.
challenges in the building industry, and things that go wrong and things that go right, just all of it. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Mhm.
That's awesome. Very
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
It's funny the top or the not the topic your title if walls could talk. So I own a commercial building in northern Minnesota. And I always say I'm glad that the walls can't talk because it used an old brothel. and
That's,
I say it all the time. I'm like, I'm so glad these walls can't talk. So,
that's hilarious. I love that.
yeah, final question is one thing that we have in similarities, whatever, is that we are in male dominated businesses.
Mhm.
And I frankly, that's not something I give a lot of attention to. I think actually, um, like my how has been different than the normal how, and it's played well in my favor. And so I really actually look at it as more of like a benefit for me. But
Mhm.
that being said, we're also in very different industries, and so I know your experience is going to be unique, set apart from mine. Tell me a little bit about how that's played out for you.
Yeah. I think it was just, when I was an employee, it was very hard for me to grow in any managerial roles. You know, Even if
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the top salespeople and stuff, like, and expressed interest, it was just hard for me to grow in there. And again, financially, I could grow based on my own efforts and selling, but to elevate my position, yeah, it wasn't as easy of an option. And so when I did start my own company, that was exciting to me, is like, okay, sky's the limit here, let's go. And it's been really important to me to like lift up females in the building industry, whether we go to the Stillwater High School for job fairs and different things. But it is growing in the building industry. There are so many women in construction, and I love it. It's been just
I
fun to
love
see.
that.
And it's again, it's not to say, I love how my business partner always puts it. He's like, to elevate, females in this industry isn't to tear down men.
It's
We
not pushing.
are,
Yes.
yeah, we
Yes.
are
And I will not participate in that world, the push down world.
right. And I'm like, we are all equally bringing things to the table and in different ways. And that's, why Joe and I
Mhm.
work so well together. We are polar opposites. We are the
Yeah.
visionary and integrator role, and we do things a lot differently. Like his attention to detail on a job site is structurally based. Like he is so, we always say, like, you're so OCD about all these things, but structurally, with the design side, that's not his forte. And that's where I come in, or my design team, and we're really particular about that. So we're just, we're bringing different things to the table. And I think that's great. But I will say the challenge that has been presented is more just assumptions. Often I get with my business partner, like, oh, he must be your dad or your husband, and you must be the designer who's, assisting him along the way. And, I'm constantly having to correct them that, hey, we're 50-50 owners. And, his wife is on she's our in-house accountant. My husband's a physical therapist, so he's not part of this company. But nope, Joe and I are just business partners, both bringing something unique and great to the table, and we work really well together. And for years, he has had the opportunity numerous times to start his own company. He had been a builder for a lot of custom builders over the course of over 30 years. And he never started it because every man that approached him to start a company with him was like him. It was two builders that had similar interests, similar talents, going into business together. And that was just not something that Joe found value in. He's like, and so when we had met, being polar opposites, he's like, okay, you're interested in stuff that, he's like, when he started, he's like, I don't care about marketing or social media. In fact, we had to start his Instagram page for him. But that's, that was a great thing that we're both focused on such opposite ends of the business. And
Yeah.
to your point, it's like, I don't find it a negative thing. We'll go to these builder events and just, explaining my role and what, how I bring value to not only our company, but this industry. It's been really well received, to be honest. I didn't think, I mean, sure, you've got a couple like old school builders are a little stuck in their ways. But for the most part, I think our industry as a whole has been really excited about the passion from both men and women. And it's been great to see.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, I had a funny experience. So last week, our team went to we were actually at Lambeau. We were into InsureCon. They had their like an insurance convention,
Yeah.
and they had their 125th anniversary convention. And so there were four of us that were there. And so my husband by trade is a chiropractor, but he is really starting to come more fully into the business. So he acts as our CFO. And so we were walking and trying to find a room where our next breakout session was. And along with your assumption of ownership piece, people were talking to us as we were walking and just getting, saying hi and niceties. And um, all within like a span of probably 5 minutes, these, two people came alongside and they were talking to my husband. And he's like, yeah, we own an agency. And I own the agency. I started at scratch. And I don't like want to come out and be like that, right? Like I don't that feels really awful to me actually, but it's really funny because they will talk to my husband like
Mhm.
he's the owner, but then they'll talk to me um like I'm a part of the operations team.
Yeah. You're his
and
assistant.
and I actually just rolled with it. I didn't say a word. I just was I just rolled with it. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But that I run into that a lot too, the assumption thing. And it used to bother me. Every once in a while will still ping me a little bit, but I think at the end of the day it's probably a good like ego check if you can be humble enough to just like, you know, if they need to know, someday they'll find out in their
Yeah.
own way, but it doesn't need to be because of any like, I just rolled with it. But yeah.
Yeah. And it depends on
And
the
I
situation
agree.
too, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. You don't necessarily need the validation from them. And, my husband will often say to them, like, oh, no, she owns the company. I'm just here as arm candy. Like, he'll say
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. And when we go to, his company events, same thing. I'm giving him the credit
Mhm.
for the awesome business that he built up. So,
That's depending on the circumstances, Adam will say, "No, she's my boss." And I always when he does that for some reason I just giggle because it's just funny to watch reactions and
yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't lord over him. He has his own lane and he does a good job and I just kind of stay out of his way. But
Yep.
um well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a pleasure getting to know you. I am super proud of your success, and I cannot wait to see you in more artisan tours in the future.
Yeah.
And so, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.